Movies, where everyone goes. Movies, not everyone knows. We're a club, we're not movie club ghosts. A ghost, not everyone knows. No. Ready for tonight's episode. Is your movie club host. Justin. The movie club movies. Podcast. Tonight's episode. Madonna. Desperately Seeking Susan. 1984. Movie club. Podcast. Rolling. Hot tip. The music in this movie is good, even the minimal synth during dramatic or transition scenes. Madonna, the central figure, is massively popular across the entire world for so many years. Recently, on Letterboxd, an article was written. I would like to reference it. The title is Desperately Seeking Something SusanSeidelman. The interview. Director SusanSeidelman is quoted as saying, "Bruce Willis, he was the bartender for our rap party for Desperately Seeking Susan. He was the runner-up for the role of Madonna's boyfriend. He didn't get the part, so we went out to LA, got moonlighting, and then became an action star." Action Boys talk a little bit about their thoughts and speculate on Desperately Seeking Susan in the beginning of their episode, Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. This is a MGM Orion picture. It's rated PG-13. It is available at my region of libraries. The editor is Andrew Monshine. He did a very similar movie that's a little bit of a tough, chunky watch called Cookie. Also, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, To Wong Fu, and The Sixth Sense, just to name a few. Again, the editor. Not a lot of stunts listed that I could pair up, so I'm just going to go right into cast. ROSANA Arquette as Roberta Glass. Of course, she's a gem. She's an icon for the 80s, a stellar actress, a part of a wild and zany family. She's been in After Hours, a TMCMS favorite. Also, Pulp Fiction. She's in so many movies. LaurieMetcalf as Leslie Glass. She's most known from Roseanne from TV, Uncle Buck. A contemporary comparison could be today's Catherine Hahn. I brainstormed and also thought LaurieMetcalf could play in Sandra Bullock-like roles. The Net, Gravity, and I could see her styled up to play Rene Russo's role in Thomas Crown Affair. Her contemporary peers are a short list: Whoopi Goldberg, Deborah Winger, Kate Mulgrew, Reba McEntire, Joyce Heiser, Sandra Bernhardt, Iman. There's a lot more to say about LaurieMetcalf. We're going to do it during the episode. We get to be right up with her. MarkBlum plays Gary Glass. He's an actor that has sort of a face like J.T. Walsh. He blends into the background as sort of a character actor in movies like Crocodile Dundee, Blind Date, The Presidio, and unfortunately, I think during the pandemic, he passed away. Even more iconic and more of a gem than ROSANA Arquette, Madonna. What I'm here for. Why I want to do this episode. There are two big movies that she was in that, for me, are very similar, and around the same time, wasn't able to watch them. Too young. The other one is Who's That Girl? Came out in 1987. She's, of course, most famous for her pop career and just being a famous person, of course, one of Hollywood's most gorgeous pop stars in the 80s and 90s. She's also been in a movie that we've popped up on podcast conversations all around. You probably have heard that she's in Dick Tracy. Also, one of my favorite James Bond movies with Halle Berry, Die Another Day. I like that theme song. Some of my favorite podcasters are not partial to that particular pick. I actually am. Also, maybe even more famous than this movie. She was in a big one called A League of Their Own. Of course, if you haven't seen that movie, please go out and get it. Her music was also featured in a movie that gets some popularity, Vision Quest. You are welcome to check out her full catalog. I just want to highlight sort of the time that she's making this movie as we will go along with what's going on with her as she's shooting this, because she's becoming a major star as she's shooting this. As this is going into release, she is becoming one of the world's biggest stars just shortly after this movie's release. Robert Joy as Jim, AidenQuin as Dez, Anna Thompson as Crystal. Anna Thompson has a really great catalog also of titles. I just want to name a few: Murphy's Romance, Something Wild, True Romance, Bad Boys, Fatal Attraction, Weird Stalker Guy. We find out his name deep into the movie, Will Patton. He's played by Will Patton, who I most know from Gone in 60 Seconds. StevenWright, the comedian, is in one of these Jim roles, sort of like Jeff Goldblum in one of Woody Allen's movies. It's like, hey, I know that guy. He's most known for me as the guy on the couch from Half Baked, also a comedic legend. He's still alive. He just did a podcast from Pete Holmes, and he's out there sort of doing some interviews. I think he even did a Conan. John Turturro is in this movie, Box of Moonlight, Transformers series, and so much else. I don't want to over-highlight him because this movie, he's just got a really small role, but we're here for ROSANA and Madonna. Giancarlo Esposito, who I have seen so much this week as I'm recording this. I've done it in a couple sessions, and I gotta tell you, I just saw him in another movie, and he works, and at the same time, some of his movies, I don't know if they've been on TV or I've seen a commercial or something. It's like, boy, that I can't watch that, but I know him. I know that actor. And we recently did, at the start of the season, Nothing to Lose. And I even, during that episode, said, please check out his catalog. And there are some future films we're going to touch on his career also. Speaking of future films, another gem, but a really hidden gem. Anne Carlisle as Victoria. She is from Crocodile Dundee and Liquid Sky. Liquid Sky will be a future episode of the podcast. I'm excited to share with you all what a really crazy movie that is. And I think I have a really fun episode lined up. I'm just working through and progressing forward. Richard Hell, also RocketsRedglare, are in this movie. Richard Hell, one of the more social sort of rock stars of the time from the punk scene. I've read about him. He's sort of a character, not the greatest guy, but at the same time working on some really important music that was in this energy bubbling underneath this movie. He's in movies like Smithereens. There's a lot to say about him, but I'm using my time to talk about RocketsRedglare. We mentioned him in Liquid Sky. He was an American character actor and stand-up comedian, as well as his career as an entertainer. He worked as a roadie for a band called The Hassles with a young Billy Joel, and a bodyguard and drug supplier to punk rock bassist Sid Vicious and artist-musician Jean-Michel Basquiat from Letterboxd. Just a quick rundown, as we mention him in Liquid Sky. A selection of his movies. Basquiat, 1996. In the Spirit, 1990. Talk Radio, 1988. He's in Big as like hotel cashier, and he takes Tom Hanks up to his room and shows him his room, and he's a really interesting frog voice guy. That throws into one of my most mentioned movies, Shakedown, 1988, also called Blue Jean Cop. There's a lot of dirtballs in that movie. Also, Down by Law, 1986. After Hours, 1984, we just mentioned that. And Stranger Than Paradise. And are you catching on to a few of those titles? He's also a Jim Jarmusch favorite. Check out our most recent episode, Ghost Dog. He's also not only a Jim Jarmusch favorite. He's in many Alexandra Rockwell films. I have one I just wanted to highlight that just seems like a really great movie club 80s find, if it's out there. It's called Rooftops from 1989. RocketsRedglare is in this movie. The synopsis: it's the only place to be. That's always a great start. From Letterboxd. T, as most of his friends, lives in a self-constructed house built on top of an old building in the city. Their one passion is combat. Combat is dance street fight, during which the contestants try to push each other out of the arena while not allowed to actually touch each other, when drug dealers move into the neighborhood and kill T's best friend. He embarks on a mission to eradicate the drug presence in the neighborhood. His friends are reluctant to help, knowing what happened to T's friend when he crossed them. That's the synopsis. I think there's some good stuff in there, but it's also like, oh, there must be a lot of stuff missing from that movie.
That movie must be sideways.
This movie is directed by a female filmmaker, SusanSeidelman. We know her from Smithereens, 1982. I just mentioned that. Richard Hell. Making Mr. Right, 1987. Her editor in this also did Cookie, 1989. You may know her from the movie She-Devil, 1989, starring Meryl Streep and Roseanne, and I'm only mentioning that because it's a cornerstone to a few of our filmmakers in this movie. Her career goes into movies covering various angles of sex work and erotica, just a shorthand because I would be interested in knowing why she turned into those interests, like The Hot Flashes, 2013. I tried to read a few articles, and I read about her 10, 15 years ago when she was being interviewed. I think it's just out of necessity and personal interest, but I haven't really found another developing story, especially when I find one on Letterboxd that I mentioned at the beginning of this movie. SusanSeidelman. I have to mention, just like in White of the Eye and other creative movies, let's dig into the art direction by Speed Hopkins. His first credits being 82 to 83, his last credit being 93. I feared a victim of AIDS epidemic. Very important to note, as we are moving into a very similar administration that looked away from what was happening in that very era I just mentioned, about 82 to 93, and I think I could even give a little bit more of a stretch on that. AIDS epidemic. Speed Hopkins also worked on FX, and one of my favorite, an anthology movie, New York Stories, with Nick Nolte and Rosanna Arquette. Speed Hopkins also worked on the movie Big. Set decoration by George Tatita Jr. He worked on Birdman, Inside Man, League of Their Own, Working Girl, New York Stories, Mixed Nuts, Beach Street, and Big. So I like going through the cast and crew like that because we get to see some similarities that fill us in not only on how did this get made, why it was made, and also sort of the style that we're looking at. Why are the colors the way they are? The sets the way they are? Maybe some of the framing, the shots, photography at those moments. We're looking at editing, stunts, art direction, set direction, cast and crew. This is a good one. On Just Watch, a handy website used to see where a movie or show could be streaming or available, you can see a rank of where a certain movie is on a spectrum of high ranks of popularity on that site. Desperately Seeking Susan is 6,055, and we're above She-Devil and Veronica Mars. I want our pod app to move this movie's popularity up 4 or 5 spots to 6,050 or above, and that would be above Karate Kid 3. Check out Just Watch. I'm excited to get further into this movie. TMCMS, tonight's feature, Desperately Seeking Susan, 1984. 1985. A nice blast from the past, the movie opens with pampering feet, nail polish, and I'm sure elements of pedicure and some clippings from haircuts are swept on what now looks like vintage tile, and we get full-on hair salon at the beginning of this movie. Better salon movie? Earth Girls Are Easy? Edward Scissorhands? This one, Desperately Seeking Susan, or something from John Waters. Anyways, the movie continues, and under the hairdryer domes is our hero, Rosanna Arquette. And she happens to be in her seat next to LaurieMetcalf. We all may know her from Roseanne, which doesn't age well, Uncle Buck, Lady Bird, and she has one of the most incredible careers and one of the most underrated gems of Hollywood. She's a notable for me. Shout out to Elle. LaurieMetcalf was married to Jeff Perry, who was Harvey on Nash Bridges. This is one of her first highly visible roles, early 80s. And of course another one would be Uncle Buck. The girls have been debating over classifieds, and my theory that starts the movie off and is the material for our hero's conflict being these classified ads and what we value them as and how what they may conceal dictates our lives. And the analog of this would be like a dating app. Swipe right for more info about TMCMS. Someone named Lakey comes up. LaurieMetcalf doesn't seem to take this seriously, and Rosanna Arquette seems to ride on the adventurous side. It's good times, and it's centered in the 80s, but we start vintage with In the Way He Kiss. It in his kiss. That where it is. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I thought you were reading the want ads. Arquette masters the early mumbles. Adrian, the salon stylist, has now come over and Rosanna wants to keep it a trim. Laurie insists on something different for a birthday present. A day at the salon, I guess? Now under the dome dryers, perfectly pink in peach light. Wow, it's from Jim, Rosanna squeals. She's informed Jim may write these periodically, and gang, she seems to live her life vicariously through these newsprint pulp romances, perhaps. Reality, perhaps? Circled in lipstick on the newsprint of the classifieds. Tuesday, 10 a.m. Keep the faith, Battery Park, Gangway 1, love Jim. Jim follows Susan all over the country. She was in Seattle and Mexico City. They have sent messages back and forth. That's how they keep up. Now they're in New York. Desperate. She really seems fetched on the word desperate, like in love. Leslie, you desperate? Ha! A wail on 80s sax, and we see a pink ruched window curtain that lowers to the floor. Of a hotel, possibly? Trays of food and sets of cards are fanned. Framing a black-laced, selfie-taken Polaroid vixen, the one and only Madonna. Selfie-focused, morning dove, she is just getting her day going. She is strategically stretched out for the camera frame as well as her own, and rolls to a model-esque curly top. Her jacket is a prime garment of her wardrobe. It has a zebra lapel, an olive polyester blend outer shell, and on her back we see an emblem, and we don't get a clear look just yet, but she is scooting her butt by crawling up to a very red bed. Don't be alarmed, it's just bad 80s colors. It's a man laying on the bed next to her, basically. I quickly think of Basic Instinct's rock and roll executive victim at the beginning of that movie. The beginning of this one starts a bit lighter, a bit brighter once we get out of this hotel room. I can smell the sex and feet. Did she hook up? Is she with Jim? So much to know, but before we leave, we need some info from this room. She's in room 1313, and room service is rolling in just as she finishes tickling this guy's feet and taking one last Polaroid. Madonna is hot. She is, in my opinion, still very raw. She has massive hits right now, and they are climbing the charts as she films. This beginning of the movie where she definitely is looking very sweet, and we're just getting to know her. We don't know of her reputation just yet. or the type of trouble she likes to get into. But just seeing her like this, it's like, hey, she looks like a great person, really creative, not annoying at all. No, I mean, this is iconic Madonna. She is an artist of thorough talent, meaning I am confident in her confidence, and she learned to shape out a character over her career, and this being an important first step with an important creator. I think her character perfectly fits this character, and that is a very strong way to step. Compared to Who's That Girl, her shape here is very real. She is very youthful, but sophisticated. She handles herself as a young businesswoman, a brand. She also swings with a sword of hip authority, which at this point she is an icon of women's fashion and the sound of hip youth across the world. And this is a sort of bohemian love journey, a horny journey. A horny journey. I don't know. That was my note. There you go. Susan takes a Polaroid of the service person and starts to read the newspaper. The camera settles on her discovery. Jimmy, it's about time. She circles the classified with a pencil heart. Above Jim's listing is a listing for red hot lovers, and most likely these look real surrounding the page. If you continue to pause the frame, you may be able to put together some classified readers, page turners, overhead turners, ear turners. Hello, Pod Turner's office now. You called Pod Turner's office now. You got a hold of Pod Turner. I'm the owner and operator of your pod station down there, and I heard you've been making them podcasts, but they ain't that too funny now. Please, no, Mr. Pod Turner. I am working very hard on a podcast. Right now it's a comedy about movies I'm watching with friends, and it's really valuable to me and my friends. It's really helpful to connect with them and new people and other people and people all over the world. So I was thinking I might have to come down there and start replacing the lights overhead. That'll keep you out of the studio for a couple weeks. Please don't come here and replace the lights, kicking us out of the studio. Studio? I'm recording from a closet in my bathroom. I don't even know if there are lights. I can't even look above. I have to keep recording and looking at this laptop I have. What are you talking about, studio? I put a quarter into a machine and I try to record as fast as possible. Nah, I seen it. I heard it, but I seen it. Podcasts are poisoning the nation. Now I'm Pod Turner, and I'm going to come down there. I'm going to start taking out your water fountains. I'm going to start combining the bathrooms and the closets, alright? And then you don't have no closet to record your poison in, alright? But you seem like a nice guy. I heard you're big and tall, and that's good. That's good for the nation. That's good for comedy, okay? But I'm Pod Turner now, and I'm going to give you a break. I'll tell you what, I'm going to get to my turkey hunting and brass beating, and I'm going to let you continue your comedy podcast for the nation. Just do not poison us, my friend. And if you do, if I see you do it on the podcast station, I'm coming down there. I'm going to start rearranging your doorknobs. You catch my flap there, Flim Jim? I see what you're saying, Pod Turner, and I'm going to keep 'em burner. Just consider this podcast an ear turner. Susan makes her escape from you-know-who. No, I don't. Who? On the red bed, Susan starts to scrap together whatever she can five-finger put in her bag. She finds a stash of brass, gold, earrings, and with her meshy gloves covering her bandit hands, she shuffles out of this hotel room saying bye-bye to the lowlife oblivious of such a goddess in his presence. Madonna has exited the room, over-accessorized. She has stuffed her life into a small drum case decorated with a stencil-sprayed skulls and skeletons. Iconic and very cool. This case pops open near the elevators. A mindless nut job is wandering in. He is dressed in a suit and looks to have bleached or beach blonde hair, and looks behind to see her scrambling for her belongings. Susan has asked to hold the elevator. This moron just walked past. She gets up and heads to the elevator. We get a view of her coat embroidery of a monosymbolic pyramid with the all-seeing eye, and this minion lurks down the hall, one-eyeing her. Back to reality. Roberta's life. She has a celebratory get-together of friends to host tonight. Her hubby is a pool and hot tub salesman, and he has a new commercial coming on. It's a bit of a viewing party for that. Our hors d'oeuvres, or appetizers, look like complicated and over-accessorized white swirls seem to be over-cheesed or goat-cheesed, which is not the goat of cheese. The goat of cheese is Gruyere, and everyone knows that, just. The real goat of cheeses is Alison Brie. The goat of sleazes is Ryan Sleazecrest. The 80s outfits in this movie. Roberta doesn't seem to have a new hairstyle going on, but her and Leslie have their hairs up in what looks like housewives' hives at the times. Of the times. But better than that, Roberta again looks dulled by her full pink shapeless, I don't know, is this a muumuu? A full flat dress. But LaurieMetcalf looks great in an electric magenta or like highlighter magenta, crushed texture v-neck dress with chunky black accessories like bangles and thick, almost choker circular necklaces. She says she sees someone upstairs. I don't know if that means a single man. She takes Roberta upstairs. Her house is large and surprising. Leslie wants to know about StevenWright, playing a doctored neighbor type. Do you know StevenWright, the comedian? Going past another Suburban all-over flat-style dress, a cream mint pastel, Leslie makes her way to Gary, who is standing next to Dr. StevenWright, and asks Gary, "Who is your friend?" Next to Gary is a female friend. "Oh, you know Becky." And Leslie does the well-mannered, throat-clearing smile as Gary catches himself and introduces his dentist friend StevenWright. Gary is showing his player instinct early in the movie, and he now moves to the commercial. He has a 10:58 slot, and he gathers Roberta to watch. What we should know is the sophistication of home pools and hot tubs. What are we even talking about? Talking hot tubs, jacuzzis, etc. The sophistication is raising, and I think the demographic for these products are young and middle-aged boomers. Also, a sort of sexuality is put onto patios and pools. Howard the Duck is another reference for award hot tub practices. Hi, I'm Gary from Gary's Oasis, New Jersey showroom. There are two blue swimsuit-clad women, I guess, in a flirtatious distance to Roberta's husband in the commercial, on what looks to be a premium pool, and Gary is in an Outback outfit, a safari outfit, and he is mentioning the sales as we follow Roberta near the back of the house to the back patio, and Gary is trailing off. At Gary's Oasis, your fantasies can come true.
A sort of sexuality is put.
Roberta looks towards the distant New York City, looking off with her thoughts
Swimsuit-clad
internal.
women.
8 minutes into the movie, after Gary does the "your fantasies can come true" splash into the pool water with the two gals. A news segment was ending just before the commercial, mentioning the robbery of an ancient Egyptian artifact. We get a good look at Roberta like she's won a sweepstakes for a pageant on The Price is Right. She looks beaming and glorious. Tremolo, and a city bus rolls into frame. New York City, Susan exits the bus, picks her drum case up, and heads towards the darkness of city lights, down to the subway, into a ladies' room. next to a true housewife in full curlers applying her face. After years of city dwelling, I can only imagine her journey for a commute. Madonna is dressed in pink, mesh, Atlantic City top with the utility suspenders, and she is air drying her armpits, iconic, and enough bangles, certified iconic, on her wrist to maintain makeshift gloves. Susan continues, out of her drum case. Hair up. More mesh. Susan uses a nail file to leave her drum case in a locker and pop the key for free. She looks towards her next step. So there's two things I want to bring up. Is that there are a lot of flashes of info, and really this is a Hourney journey. You're just going along with this journey if you're not able to pay attention to like the news flash talking about the robbery, because you don't really know what's going on unless you hear those moments. And two, and there's a few of those things, even what Gary, her husband, is up to, is really like you have to pay attention to what this wet noodle is up to. Suspicious wet noodle is up to. Susan, played by Madonna, is so confident and I guess carefree and so self-directed. She's doing all this stuff and it's just great. And I'm not really making critical comments, so I don't have too much to say. I'm just loving it. She's air drying her armpits. Her arms are full of iconic 80s bangles, which she bringers of such a style, just going along with her ride. Until then. Back at Roberta's, she sits alone. She's emo watching a black and white movie. When Gary comes in, the lights go on. The lights show that she's in a nook of a kitchen with a scoop of ice cream, wall-size photo hung behind her. Next to her is a pink icing cake, a strawberry decoration on one side of the room. This slice of the kitchen is enough to remind me of Phoebe Cates' ex's condo in Drop Dead Fred. Even better is Peter Weller's kitchen from Shakedown. And I wondered if my notes were going to talk about this is also like Liz Lemon photo art in her office in 30 Rock. A lot could be said for all this decoration. I find it delicious. I like it. It's great for the 80s. I gotta move on, or I could ramble about it all day long. Gary reminds her to pick up his new car stereo from the shop downtown. She asks about remembering your dreams. He hasn't really thought about it. And Rosanna Arquette has killer delivery. She's also in After Hours with a similar tone to what she's doing in this moment. The rest of this movie is a variety of tones. But this moment, I don't know if it's iconic. I don't know if it's what she's known for. Maybe it's just what resides from my impression of her. I'm filling things in. It's because we are living his dream. What about her dream? I'm filling things in. It's because we are living in his dream. What about her dream? My dream. Their dream. She's still got this newspaper with her, and Gary thinks she's been eating the cake. A band plays inside the Magic Club outside a green-lit marquee from the city. Sidewalk. Comes Susan. Past a homeless person sleeping outside, a cigarette woman with a tray full of gum and cigarettes to sell as a throwback to Roaring New York. Played by Ann Magnuson, TMCMS movies, Tequila Sunrise, Mac's ex-wife. She drained the BMW of oil and needed $10,000 in Tequila Sunrise. She's in Tank Girl as the Madame, and Small Soldiers, and The Hunger, just to name a few. In the 80s, these things would have charm and folks could still make most of their rent on a night gig like this. This movie is going to depart such dust kept. More controlled living spaces from the earlier scenes, we will remain exploring and occupying a sweatier side of New York City, a youthful, artistic time, a more truthful time, and our cigarette actress is made up and is serious for nightlife in NYC. We scanned up her lace-hosed legs, and she continues to puff, welcoming us through the looking glass. Susan enters. The band charms. "Susan, we all thought you were dead." "No, I was just in New Jersey." And Susan snags a pack. On stage is a magic show of sorts, a throwback to vaudeville, a desperate attempt at entertainment, big time, Big Apple. Give it up for Ian. John Turturro is the MC. Backstage, Susan meets her friend Crystal, who is complaining about not being able to wear her glasses on stage. She is in pink fishnet leggings and sparkling decorative dance top. She has switched wigs, and under a blonde is a gray or lavender. I'm talking about her hair color. You'll have to do your best to check it out. Maybe adjust your monitor, because she does have this like 80s, I don't know what's going on, a bleach or like a gray color to the hair she's choosing. Susan charms her way into staying at her place, Crystal's, and Sus comes with a reckless reputation, one that could be party lethal. And Crystal, we can see, is frantically keeping her life magically collected. New place, new face. New cheesy puffs. Madonna loves cheesy puff. Susan loves cheesy puff. Out for a walk, NYC city neighbor Richard Edson. He's the valet from Ferris Bueller. Remember that guy? He was paired up with a buddy, and they took the car out for a joyride, brought it back with a lot of miles on it. He's also the former Sonic Youth drummer. He was also in bad movies Howard the Duck, and Ben Stiller, Owen Wilson, Starsky and Hutch. A great character actor. He seems to brushstroke his own flavor when his characters appear in movies, which is surprisingly rare. This guy
Just is his own bottle of whiskey.
He opens a newspaper dispenser door. For a lazy, Madonna helps herself, taking a whole stack to hand out. I don't know if they still have these newspaper dispensers that you would put like 50 cents in and you're supposed to just grab one, although it's just open to you. So people could have taken several more. He's kind of opening it and checking her out sort of in a gentleman's way, flirtatiously sort of giving her the eye, and she just zeroed in on him, which is kind of fun because I just feel like, well, that would be a cool taxi ride. Richard Edson, Ferris Bueller before this, or Richard Edson, Ferris Bueller after this, early Jim Jarmusch, including Stranger Than Paradise, before this movie. Richard Edson and Madonna in 1984 or whatever, pretty cool. But she steals a stack of newspapers to hand out. Edson and Madonna, kinda cute city couple. The newspaper front page headline we read over Susan's olive jacket shoulder says, "Atlantic City, monster falls out a window, mystery woman to be questioned." Susan, with a black bow and mesh gloves, heads out. Again, I'm telling you, she is just on her own direction. And the movie is definitely showing us that, and as we're either in Gary's world or we're in Susan's world. Roberta arrives in her convertible Ford sports car. Not sure what this is. She still has her newspaper with the class of feeds. She is driven directly to the Battery Park Gangway 1. She's walking the boardwalk to find Jim and or Susan. Does she know what she will do? Do we know what she will do? No, we don't. And I think that's a part of the magic and the popularity of this movie, is that we really are following somebody who's following strangers on classifieds. The boardwalk has drum circle style drumming, and I know it's not the worst, but it sounds nice for a moment. Zen even, maybe. But after 3 minutes, it's awful. I wish to be away from it, and I'm a musical and creative person. Stop. You know what's so wild is this is from my notes from a few months ago. I just was thinking about this, and I'm not trying to criticize on the community of drum circles. I do appreciate the folks on the streets busking with drums sometimes that's like, yeah, do your thing. But there is something to be said. I was just thinking the other day, my neighborhood park, I was unable to just study there. You might catch a movie, maybe we'll cover a movie, but definitely like 90s sitcoms I feel like would do this, where you'd always catch somebody just studying or reading or calmly, yes, studying in the park. And it's like, be careful on those West Coast parks. But by now, I could see that I could find this at the majority of populated parks. Drum circles. Drum circles can keep someone from studying at the park or having 15 or 45 minutes of just some time to read and digest something. It's pretty tough if you've got a drum circling happening. I just was thinking about that the other day. I didn't miss it, but I was sort of nostalgic for those times where that would be the hum rather than like Amazon delivery trucks or landscaping trailer trucks. She passes Jim on the bench and is incredibly beautiful with 80s sunglasses, flowy housewife's blouse, and violet cardigan. This is Roberta, played by ROSANA Arquette. She looks around to see who Susan could be. She is the one looking desperate. She looks as if to cry out at any moment. She does not look calm or enjoying a view into a natural waterway, because I should say that the surroundings are a concrete boardwalk, railings and benches and minimal vendors and such, but lots of folks walking. I kind of could admit that I think a majority of these folks walking are just extras and day players or what have you. But on the other side of this sort of man-made park or what have you is, I don't know, what I could call like a bay. I don't know what this waterway is. It's a natural waterway, and it's scenic. Jim nearby, although she doesn't know, he asks her for a lighter. She doesn't smoke, and continues to look off into her own fantasy. Jim shouts, "Susan!" Roberta cannot help herself with her excitement. She joins and jumps up from her bench and makes her way towards their direction. Jim is off in front. Roberta stops at a viewfinder, and gets a spy-like view, a true value voyeur, for real to be sure, and goes from sightseeing yacht ferry to a boot flickin', cigarette lightin', Susan looking dusky, with her zebra flare lapels, white mesh gloves, Fredericks of Hollywood style bustier. I don't know, she looks cool as hell and iconic. Think about Madonna, 1980s, right now in your head. Boom, that's what she looks like in this scene. Wayfarer sunglasses are all over this movie, and this movie is one of those that I think got the reference credit for that rebirth in early 2000s. Shout out to Bob Dylan also. Just then, Jim finds Susan for a cigarette smoke kiss. They rock and roll for a confirmed kiss in front of Roberta, whose split second of Madonna peak view time came to an abrupt end, and she desperately winces at the couple, this time without the viewfinder. Quickly, a viewfinder, I think they're still out there, but they used to be this sort of heart-shaped, almost badge-shaped, with two eye sockets. And again, like my podcast recording machine, or like put a quarter in a payphone. Hey Bumblebee, remember those? Or the newspaper dispenser Michael Edson just helps us with. Put a quarter in and you get whatever time to look ahead. Coming from the Bay Area, you could do this around Alcatraz. Many other tourist spots. I'm sure most have seen this. I just wanted to clarify because I just keep saying viewfinder. Susan is ballbuster number 1 in this feature, and she claims her status here and forever heard. Jim is telling Susan he's only got a few minutes for a drink. They just got a gig in Buffalo and needs to head out. Cool with him. Why put out an ad if you weren't planning on sticking around? Jim replies, I've been looking for you for weeks. Jim, you are the luckiest dog. 17 minutes and 30 seconds into this movie. Jim is the worst actor and is not convincing to Susan in the least. She says he will be working, and that's boring. And she doesn't want any trouble in Buffalo. Roberta looks on, with a high school scowl from afar. Jim's band rolls up to where they are on the boardwalk, and their van matches Susan's drum case. Stencil sprayed, skeletons and skulls. Worth a look. Maybe you've already seen this before. It's definitely a very stylish van, and definitely probably like the 2012's style, probably rebirthed this. Lots of black, but it's like a matte black painted van with these white stenciled skulls and bones, but that kind of becomes gray, and because it's a movie with some natural light, it even kind of has this silver. It's very rock and roll, very cool, and it's all over this van. Then you get another little taste, a great style on Madonna's drum case, Susan's drum case, which we will continue to see and covet in this movie. Jim passes on a number. This is such a rock and roll love story. The number is for Dez. Call him if you get into trouble. Susan has shown Jim that the dead mobster in Atlantic City was a guy she was with. He mentions, no more dead bodies. Susan continues down authentic New York City streets, and this note is already bringing up, what about Susan from Just the Way You Are? This is two Susans running amok in their own story in their own city. Shout out to Susan. As Susan tries on a hat and some sunglasses, and so does Roberta. Remember, they're just going down this streetway, which now has some vendors along a sidewalk. I forgot to mention that. It's almost like just a neighborhood street. It's not really like And clumsily, Roberta trips over Giancarlo Esposito's sunglass hut. I don't know, this is spontaneous, and Roberta continues to be a flake and be out of it. She stumbles over these little vendors as she's truly mirroring what Susan is doing, trying on some hats and some sunglasses. Giancarlo Esposito has offered her to try these things on, and she trips up all this stuff, and it just scatters all over his area and other people's area. We're 20 minutes into the movie. Down the city street they go. I want to highlight, without being such a lurker, but that is what it would look like. An 80s pantyhose model is chasing after America's #1 pop princess on a Target run. Because both women in this ideal model scenario of a breezy, dusky city street with authentic wares on either side, headed to the most coolest magical hip secondhand shop around, it does not get better than this. We are in the textures of Taxi Driver, After Hours, and My Demon Lover. At no point in this movie do either women look terrible. This is prime location, vintage storefront shop. They just came from a sidewalk sale of local vendors. It only happened at this time. I mean, these places like this, these strands of bohemian style deals happen once in a blue moon. We don't get a name for the shop, but once inside, Susan is going for these bejeweled black boots. The structure is slightly slouchy, and they have a thin heel. Susan is walking around the rug of the small shop. Roberta was covered by the boots in the window as she peeked inside. She has joined Susan in shopping inside. However, secretly, she is idolizing Susan and is shuffling hangers of items. Susan eyes her to make sure she's not the man, and turns to walk straight out of the store. The NYC Authentic shop clerk instructs her to stay on the carpet, honey. $54, that is the price, he says. Nice coat. Susan tells us, it once belonged to Jimi Hendrix. Oh yeah. Her jacket, I think, has become coveted after Roberta noted it from her meeting with Jim back at the piers. Susan trades her jacket straight up for the heels. And again, Madonna, now showing bare shoulder, makes sure to shower us all with stardust salts. Aretha Franklin has been singing R.E.S.P.C. on the shop speaker. Roberta falls over another rack of clothes. Get a hold of yourself. She looks for Susan and is not able to see her outside of the store. Back in the store, shopper Roberta, yes, the newly obtained street-worn olive green jacket, Our store clerk now says, "It used to belong to Elvis Presley." And Roberta tries it on. True fit. The next shots are her back at the suburban home, which has a notable timer for a rotisserie chicken. And I never have seen such a thing outside of a grocery store or whatever. It's a rotisserie, like you would have an oven, although this is like the 80s TV. It's into the wall, and it had a timer. It started when she came into the room. She jogs into her kitchen and starts all the fixins for a typical meal. Nothing even happened today, worth mentioning kind of meal. Even the coffee maker starts up. So yeah, rotisserie chicken and coffee. Are you in heaven, listeners? Who's got cream corn? Who's got cans of cream corn to go along? She's like chopping up for a salad. She has turned on Julia Child and frantically mixing and chopping away in her new second-hand olive green jacket with a pyramid on the back. The bag from the shop could also be this pink bag, and I could make out the green text says, "Love Saves Day." So maybe it's like Love Saves Day vintage shop is what I'm piecing together on this bright pink bag. I won't pick away at micro details, but I also have not always looked into this story, and it took a while for me to see what her married life was like. And I wondered if the character, through her self-confusion, has more answers to her motives, because it has been just a day in the life sort of a movie up till now, and also I've seen this almost a dozen times, and it is interesting to pick up on the details of her married life to just understand her inner frustration, her quiet frustration, her confusion, and we are discovering this maybe while she's discovering such a thing. Julia is on TV saying, "Make this in the morning before..." And Roberta is following along, as if to make this right now. It seems also, does she know this recipe was coming on TV? Or is this obvious, like I was saying, she is staying busy to not cause attention to her adventurous affair to the city? Gary Glass, so weird, goes up to the TV screen and says, "Goodbye, girls. I've got hot tubs from Germany on a freight ship stuck at customs." And is this his way of saying big words to distract from a Becky affair? This is juicy, and I have suspicions. Roberta has forgotten the car stereo, car radio. A small fight starts, with Roberta wishing he had mentioned earlier so she didn't have to start dinner. Rush. Rush from where? You said you hadn't done anything. I don't like this mix because this actor comes off as a typical cheating guy, typical 80s cheating guy. He is less meathead than Drew Barrymore's fiancé and wedding singer, and a little bit more James Spade. I'm telling you, this guy is one car radio away from driving a DeLorean. Gary continues. And what are you wearing? Her wardrobe before now did do a good job of causing contrast with her newly obtained second-hand olive green jacket with pyramid embroidery on the back. Roberta. It used to belong to Jimi Hendrix. Gary. What, you bought a used jacket? What are we, poor? He leaves for the day. She's quietly discouraged. And again, I don't know, I'm wanting to navigate, and these are signs I'm picking up on this lovely movie. I am open to how others interpreted Robert and Susan's journeys. As Roberta tosses the jacket onto the chairs nearby, a red key falls to the floor. This was the key where Susan keeps her drum case of belongings. This is a really neat detail and adds to the movie's call to adventure. After a tits-up, relaxing bath, Roberta looks over a Polaroid of Susan from the jacket and decides to place an ad the following day for a Susan meetup back at Battery Park, Gangland Way 111. We see Susan has come back to the vintage shop for her jacket. To get the key, she left. We didn't see Susan smoke a ton of pot, but I mean, what are you thinking, Sus? Only in your 20s. Like thinking that you just come back to a store and find small items that fell from your pockets is adventures for 20-somethings. I've been there. You like have to run back across town that you rode over on your bike and you left your day planner or something. Susan gives her name and info to the second-hand shopkeeper. Susan reads the new classified ad from Roberta. Stranger. Susan looks into camera and says, "Thanks, stranger." Jim also reads the ad, with his skeleton van in the background. He is confused by this message from stranger and calls his friend Des, who is the projectionist, and just like our friend Larry from Night of the Comet, we get an inside look at a remarkable cool position, and he looks to be really running a movie screening. Michael Berryman, in The Hills Have Eyes, I'm not for sure. Des has just been dumped by his girlfriend Victoria, shout out to Anne Carlisle, Liquid Sky fame. And although the fill reel was going to run out before the phone call, he may not be that good at his job because during the phone call, a film reel runs out, and he is juggling both the phone call and putting the next reel of film into the projector. Just be good at your job, Des. Jim is a good boyfriend, and in the element of he puts two red flags together and asks a friend to help check in on a person who may be harmed. The guy in Atlantic City didn't sit right with Jim, and he just read this classified ad from a stranger. He persuades Des to go down in less than an hour to check it out. He's talking about Susan, wherever she may be. She is real pretty blonde, green and gold jacket with a pyramid, with an eye on top like a dollar bill. Roberta is trying on the jacket. RocketsRedglare is driving the taxi, complaining about food. This guy's head is the subject of Basquiat's paintings. He's also in Big, After Hours, and Shakedown. He's been noted at the top of our episode. RocketsRedglare is our taxi driver. We get real city shots of 84 NYC, and I don't expect anything less from having this guy in the frame. Much better than Susan's view from an NYC bus in Just the Way You Are, 1984, and I'm telling you, these gals are on a mission. Rocket says, "Sushi is taking over the restaurants. Sushi. Everyone wants sushi. I took some home. Cooked it. It was alright. It tasted like fish." Susan, fixing her lipstick, smirks, unimpressed and rather annoyed by this guy. Roberta is already at Battery Park, gangway number 1, and our blonde-haired creeper, Will Patton, is also there. For whatever reason, this guy is also there. He is also following along Susan's classified romance. I hope I'm not cutting off my notes, but this character Will Patton is playing has been lightly speckled in. He passed Susan on the elevator at the beginning of the movie, and he's been in the background at these piers, I think the last time we visited the pier, but this time we get much more of a camera shot of him. He has a Polaroid of the back of Susan with the pyramid embroidered on her back like a dollar bill. He remains dressed impeccably well for 84 NYC, and along with our fashionable stars, he, along with the cast, is tastefully costumed. He looks like a rich burgundy suit coat and a geometric pattern button-up, tied tight with an 80s skinny tie, also gray or charcoal. I wonder if Crispin Glover was up for this role. Rockets rolls up in a checkered cab. The fare is $5. Susan gives him part of the money, or nothing. We hear him saying, "Hey lady!" Susan runs to meet stranger Roberta. Will Patton has approached Roberta first and is doing a Travis Bickle, "I've seen you somewhere before." His vibe is gentle, however alarming. Roberta is distracted, looking for Susan. As Susan approaches, so does Rockets, pointing at her like she was Madonna from behind. An efficiently present NYC patrol cop gives her by the arm and says, "Can we talk about it in the car?" New York City cops, New York City cops, they ain't too smart. Dramatic tension injected from what I would say is unrealistic and nightmare fuel that a woman looking like Madonna would be immediately manhandled and drugged to a patrol car moments, not minutes, but moments after getting out of an NYC cab, not paid. Okay, SusanSeidelman, okay. I don't need this kind of aggression. I work for a living. Rockets. Susan is getting stuffed into the patrol car. We don't even see her. Roberta is colorfully walking away from the guardrail, away from Will Patton. Hold on. This is crucial information. Shout out. Coming up next on TMCMS podcast. Crawl 2009. Flawless 2007. Take a moment to reflect on TMCMS tonight. Okay, SusanSeidelman, okay.
I don't need this kind of aggravation. I work for a living.
Rockets. Susan is getting stuffed into a patrol car. We don't even see her. Roberta is colorfully walking away from the guardrail, away from Will Patton. She is in a rich electric pink sweatshirt top and violet 80s denim with a colorful bow in her hair as if to look like an inverted Susan, a more color-filled doppelganger. Last we saw of Susan, she was again iconic and daring, darling in black lace collar and buttoned top with black bow, Ray-Ban Wayfarers, and black everywhere else. Will Patton continues pursuing Roberta, asking, Hey, do you like candy? What the fucking flip? Even Roberta is walking, looking at him like, what the fuck? WTF. Will Patton is sharp and he is damagingly good in this role, as he has locked sync with Roberta and no one around her in a busy boardwalk is conscious enough to help her or ask if everything is alright. No one is budging or walking up to Roberta while this man is a magnet on her, which may seem unrealistic if we continue looking into the movie vision, but in reality, if an interaction is this annoying or is this physical, someone, shouldered next to Roberta, may flinch or ask them both if things are alright, no matter the response. Public traffic on a boardwalk in NYC, it's not this oblivious. He is mumbling, mentioning that he was friends with her boyfriend in Atlantic City. We did see that he was walking past Susan near the elevators when she began leaving Atlantic City, New Jersey. Roberta says she's married, and matching her walking, Will Patton eerily disagrees. Dez has rode in on a moped borrowed. It's a Chinese restaurant delivery moped, Dragon Noodle. Will Patton mentions while touching her hair, he's looking for earrings, and he has grabbed her arm, just like the police officer grabbed Susan's arm. Roberta squeals, "Let go of me!" No one in NYC flinches, and it's upsetting, confining. Will Patton at this angle has a Ryan Gosling thing going, but it's an evil angle, and it's got some Gyllenhaal flair. If you close your eyes, open your eyes again. Susan, Dez says. "Let go! Help!" she screams. She wiggles away from Patton as Dez excels his moped. Roberta turns in her struggles and backs into a light pole, knocking her head back. Her limbs flail, and her pretty acorn-shaped purse falls from her hands and rolls down and off the pier. With it, any chance of IDing Roberta. And it's a great shot. It's one of the most memorable shots for me. Just seeing this round-shaped purse. It almost is like an acorn, if it's not an acorn. And it's rolling down this pier, isolated on the frame. Roberta says, waking up, "What happened? My head hurts." "I'm Dez. I'm a friend of Jim's." "Your boyfriend Jim? Who was the guy hassling you?" "I don't know. I don't remember." They sit down and Roberta doesn't remember anything. She doesn't remember what she ate for breakfast. Dez begins checking that she's Susan. I mean, she's wearing her jacket. She pulls out Dez's phone number. Jim gave Susan. Roberta also pulls out Susan's red key. Roberta feels like this is deja vu, a past the Movie Club Movies podcast episode at the top of the season. Be sure to check that one out. Des questions that she can't remember anything. How can it be deja vu? Denzel shows up from behind to say, it's not deja vu, it's ghost bustin'. It's okay, just. Des inspects the key and notes it's a Port Authority locker. Des will take her over and to see if her locker contents help her snap out of it. Also, in a quietly spoken moment, Des weeds out Susan's word-of-mouth reputation for troublemaking and drama. Even though Roberta took a whack to the head, she may be putting us on, jerking me around. Funk that! Roberta as Susan responds, I'm not jerking you around. I don't know you. The scene on an NYC boardwalk is super quiet for some reason. On to the Dragon Noodle, off to the Port Authority, into Susan's locker, onto the Port Authority floor, 33 minutes into the movie. Roberta opens the drum case. The case with all her stuff looks not unfamiliar, and Des notices
She has moved around a lot.
she has silverware and loud clothing, a corset top, with Arquette giving a blushed, doe-eyed look when she sizes it up. She holds an earring up and closes her eyes. She says she thinks of a pyramid, like the one from your jacket? Oh yeah. Arquette is masterclassing us mumblecore. Des checks that she's alright and feeling better. Guess so. He's got to get back and we can feel his urgency. Both parties are unsure of what to do next. On a down escalator, Des shouts, Do you have anywhere to stay tonight? She doesn't, and she has thought to start smoking. Des begins packing her case, and again, with paragraph indented, Des recounts her word-of-mouth reputations and cautions. For one night, none of your friends can come over, and none of my things leave my place. Roberta as Susan is scrambling to keep up. I could imagine her head is throbbing. Roberta, trying to assimilate to Susan, takes a drag of the cigarette and coughs and gags. Susan is matched on the screen with a jail guard, lighting her cigarette through the bars. Drawing a comparison to the opening scene of Who's That Girl? Susan is out and heads to the Port Authority to find her locker empty. Her lace button-up top is scalloped and cropped. Des returns the moped to an irate Chinese delivery friend who owns it. Never again, he says, and again we are getting a glimpse into NYC apartment life and streets. There's some realism here, and there's some real shots of city. This is not only a prime 80s NYC movie with shots and production and actual NYC locations, it's also a Polaroid capture of some realistic aspects of 80s NYC scenesters and content creators of the time. Even though these are actors in their early 30s playing hipster creative types in their early 20s, as they are walking in and up to Dez's space, a guy is walking down with a hip vintage lamp with striking vintage lampshade. Des says, That's mine.
None of my things leave my place.
Although at first he is unaware, passing a box or two of stuff being walked down, while he and
Roberta,
as Susan, walk up.
None of my things leave my place.
Victoria, laughing with maybe her new boyfriend, a James Spader type. Victoria, played by Liquid Skies, and CARLISLE. Now is not the best time to bring this up, but she's in a future movie from the Movie Club Movies podcast, Liquid Sky. I don't want to get into her and what she's all about and overload this episode because she's going to get her own episode in a few weeks. Stay tuned, stay posted. Victoria, laughing, with maybe her new boyfriend, a James Spader type. Des defends his stuff. Some of that is mine. The answering machine, the Charlie Parker record, Bird lives. She compromises and reconciles to send him a check for everything else. How much else? Geesh. Des continues to be welcoming and helpful to resolve, which would be alarming if you're an observant acquaintance of Roberta's or Susan's, because she still seems very out of it, and she needs some water, I'm sure. Which brings us to the apartment clearing. The size, space, and light of the space are noted by Roberta, and also, it is a space remarkable in today's urban city living. Large studio spaces are not lived in by down-and-out rocker projectionists and their fashionably rebellious friends. But what a fun time! Dez's place is lit like Beetlejuice, and we get a pumped-in, truly juice gold orange, golden hour through the large windows, and not much else in the apartment. Des asks if Susan would like anything. Roberta, as Susan, played by ROSANA Arquette, has you believing this is really happening. I am in the apartment space, and I am hoping bells ring for her and her safety. Also, I think Susan and Roberta would make good friends, and I want that for them. Is anyone else out there locked into these Arquette scenes? Drinks. Roberta as Susan, apple juice, Coke, Perrier. Des, Miller or Heineken, he asks. Susan, either one. Grimace, 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 please. I don't believe it, Des shouts. She took the refrigerator. The empty space in Dez's kitchen space is replaced in the frame with Gary, Roberta's husband, getting sandwich fixins out while his sitter, Leslie, is streaming questions and concerns. Oh, is that his sitter or his sister, Leslie? I went with sitter because it seems like he's unable to do anything without his wife around. His sister, Leslie, is streaming questions and concerns for his newly missing wife, Roberta. Gary has a strong suspicion she could be having an affair, and reveals mistakenly to Leslie, thinking she was referencing his affair with Becky, he confirms he is having an affair with Becky. He has all of this sandwich meat, bread, mayo, mustard, and is stuffing his face, wearing another teal men's top. It's a polo or rugby style shirt, and Leslie has a loose hairdo with a warm blue v-neck blouse. Leslie is giving him a daytime TV plot summary, asking Gary if he gave Roberta orgasms. And also is choking. Victim, Gary, says not everyone is obsessed about sex. And have you just watched Donahue or something? Very dated dialogue, and please, don't nobody follow Leslie's lead.
She's got leads.
No,
She
stop.
knows how to use them. She's got leads.
No, stop.
She knows how to use them. She's
No,
got
stop.
leads.
Leslie, at least I know about feelings. Gary, I feel. He is instantly shoving food like pickles into his face. In comes Dr. StevenWright, going as Larry. He must have followed Leslie over, or are they at Leslie's place? It's a similar looking kitchen to Roberta and Gary's. Larry goes for the chicken. Leslie says the chicken is for tomorrow, and Larry and Gary are now sitting at a kitchen table eating these leftovers together. Leslie is freaking out about a crisis. We're nervous. We're eating. Obvious could be the awakenings of guy on the couch StevenWright, half-baked, just a note. A change of scenery, Roberta as Susan is on the roof of Dez's place with a vast amount of Chinese food right out of the container, and some cats are getting involved. Roberta has a bottle of whiskey and seems already drunk. I didn't remember she has many drinks in the movie, but here I am quite wrong. She is drinking, mentioning she still can't remember, and Des is confirming the guy Susan was with in Atlantic City was found dead. She may know who did it, but cannot remember. Des goes dark and suspects she could have killed the guy. Roberta thinks she should lay low for a while. She takes a big shot and acts like it's burning. It was such a big gulp of cheap alcohol, it's a surprising take. Des is surprised Susan is not who he expected. Women are always the unexpected. A meet-cute moment continues. Roberta makes the move on Des after asking about Jim. I think she's confused and drunk, and we gotta get her back on track. I would categorize her movie as punch-drunk love. Des is a gentleman and flattered by her affection because I think he became confused by Roberta's line of questioning. Roberta has more "I'm sorries." A saxophone playing apartment city dweller plays in the window. It's very 80s, very bohemian. Really nice touch. Will Patton sits outside of Dragon Noodle. The two, Des and Roberta, sleep separated in Des's space. All good shots, glowing neon signs, the sound of rain falling. Des has a wall-sized aquarium. Des is up and a cat licks at the fish in the window. And through the aquarium, we see Roberta getting dressed. She's a beautiful person, a woman of natural beauty. Movie lighting and camera frame work well with Rosanna Arquette. Des looks and sees she's getting dressed in a sequined green Susan dress from Susan's drum case. She twinkles. After she tinkles and comes into Des's room, he has picked up the cat into his bed, bashful. Roberta has lost her way, left her husband, a life as a wife in the suburbs. She made her way to New York City to possibly meet or witness another couple meet, lol. She's an admirer of her own secret, and that's a romantic couple unaware of her and her admiration until recently. And during that intersection, complications arose, and she now goes by Susan, because the real Susan is whom Roberta admires from afar until recently, and that woman's life has not entangled Roberta further, and she needs help. Are you following all that? Because I totally do. Today, she wakes early and finds clues in the property she has obtained from real Susan. Breakfast is on me, Roberta says, or on Susan. Des is a skeptical downer. Did you rob a bank? Maybe I did. She has a matchbook with a diner as a clue. So we go there and see if anybody remembers me.
So what do you think? Anyone look familiar?
No, not yet. Found this in the suitcase. You ever hear of it?
Magic Club? Yeah, that's that place over on Broadway. Why?
I thought I'd go there this afternoon and see if I remember anyone.
You know what you're having?
Sure. What are you having?
Well, it's your treat, right?
Yeah, I got money.
I'm gonna have blueberry blintzes.
I'll have that too. That sounds good. What can I get you?
Yes, I would like a coffee and a donut.
Miss, when you get a chance, could you take our order?
You can stay. She's got to go. Nick, it's that crazy girl with the jacket.
What?
You out.
You know me?
Yeah, I know. You want to free me to go someplace else?
I got money. I can pay
I don't
you.
want your money once you're out of here. Come on.
Wait, we got money. What is this?
Mind your own business.
This is my business. Wait a
Make
minute.
your business. Come on. Wait. Come on.
Yeah, I want to. What's going on?
Lucky I don't press charges. It's all right.
Yes. Are you okay? Are you alright? I'm sorry.
Rule number 1 was no drama. Remember?
Yes. I know. I'm sorry.
Let's get out of here.
I'm sorry.
In her early stages of Susan, Roberta has a Blondie or Marilyn or Madonna, from Who's That Girl kind of twinkle in her voice, and doll-like mannerisms. This is charming for the time, it adds comedy to the character, but is archaic in a way, and after the blockbuster births of A Promising Young Woman, Captain Marvel, shows further archaic outdated. She's cute, and I know that Roberta has a Rosanna Arquette navigating underneath, and Arquette carries the natural attitude of a construction team worker, the one who would drive the earth mover. I'm not worried about Roberta as Susan's birdie doll-like shuffles and pokey speaking patterns. She's also desperate to find out more of what she forgets. She does not seem dim. Is Roberta wearing one earring and Susan is wearing one earring from the Atlantic City hotel room stash? In her far out green sequins, is Roberta sparkling, living her own fantasy right now? In the diner at the table bar, Des smokes. Roberta is wearing the olive green jacket and shows Des the Magic Club postcard from her bag. Will Patton is there at the diner too, reading an Iman comic. His blonde hair is glowing in the morning sun. As Des asks for service instantly, the waitress unleashes the cook, who comes on a straight track to kick Susan out. They recognize her olive green jacket. They are basically kicked out of the diner. Roberta drops the Magic Club postcard, and Blondie Will Patton picks it up. Des says, remember rule number 1, no drama. Ugh, this character is a bag of concrete. He is not seeing that they threw you both out for really no reason at all. And you both were not doing anything at all, and you think Susan has anything to do with it? This Susan is going through a health drama. At Magic Club, Susan in orange sits on a discarded couch, smoking. Pushing her way out is Crystal shouting that she quits. She has a turquoise necklace and lightning green leggings and matching plaid socks. Susan is wearing her heeled boots with the slouchy uppers peeled down. Dancer iconic, I swear. The buddies sit on the couch. The girls leave to restructure. The Magic Club window shows a help wanted sign. Roberta and Des approach in a taxicab. Roberta exits.
I'm sorry about what happened. Are you angry?
Des assures her he is not. I'll call Jim. Des, Bleecker Street Cinema. Inside, John Turturro eats away and is abruptly hoping to fill the magician's assistant gig as Roberta as Susan walks in. Opportunity magically appears. About halfway through the movie. Gary sits alone eating a microwave dinner. Hungry Man dinner. LMAO. He has a housekeeper who is leaving for the day, and she is upcycling the Love Saves Day second-hand shop bag, and comically, Gary wants the bag, and the housekeeper is genuinely in no panic saying, "You're not getting this bag, Gary," tripping as he advances further. Gary rolls up to the shop storefront on the streets of NYC, and a trio of boombox listeners are cooling out. Someone is eating chicken out of a bucket, and Gary parks beside them. They begin to take over that side of his car. He cannot do much but asks them to be mindful of his car. The shopkeeper can only give Gary the contact info Susan gave when trying to meet Roberta to retrieve her red key from the olive green jacket. It was black and gold with a pyramid, like a dollar bill. She has a name, it's Susan, not Green Jacket. The phone rings as Crystal has her toes and cotton balls, about to apply nail polish. While Susan is blasting music in her 80s headphones, she doesn't hear the phone and can't answer. How rude. Crystal shuffles over. The room is green, the couch is green, the blanket is green, the pizza is red, Susan is orange. The phone is pink, with bedaubled baubles of shell and button-like round objects. The guy on the other end is Gary, asking to meet Susan. She makes plans to meet, I think, back at the Magic Club. Back at the Magic Club, Ian and Roberta are ready to perform, and before the curtain goes up, Ian says some bossiness that's obviously insensitive. Roberta can't hang on to any birds. The duck flies away into the audience and across the bar. This cigarette gal can be heard making her rounds. Menthol, extra long, ultra thin, extra, ultra long, and thin, regular, premium, unleaded. Everything is awkward here. I love this movie and I think the director is a visionary, but this nightclub and the scene along with are hard on the eyes, and the colors are strikingly bad. The red of the stage, the red of the tables. The waitress walks over, dressing heels, and layered in 80s fashion, including thick green satin gloves, and at this moment, I cannot appreciate the color story. I think this scene is obstructively sweaty, not approachable, caution flaring, and repulsive to a tamed palate. LOL. I am half kidding. It's a nightmare sauce. This dickhead magician, as soon as the curtain falls, says, "This is as bad as the last one." He had to retrieve his own damn duck. What is funny is that Roberta is clueless. I mean, she's smart and sharp, but she's also rolling at a slower pace. And I guess that's sort of a Alicification of it all. Her surroundings are moving at a magical New York minute. But again, I know she's sharper than we are seeing. She's truly thrust into her own circumstances after a series of exciting choices, excitingly poor choices, steadily poorer choices, have led her to being the Dove assistant to the Doves at Magic Club. John Turturro wants her to take the Doves home and practice. I am just as surprised as Roberta. She got the job. She heads out for the night while her hubby, Gary Glass, is meeting Susan at a dance club. My theory, which I believe to be true, is that these dance club scenes were populated with Madonna's real dancers and entourage, as for the next 10 years will become more infamous and melded to her Hollywood personality. Just saying, she is certainly one of America's most influential artists and entertainers since the time of this movie, worth noting for context. Susan is throwing a loop out that Roberta is masterminding a murder and dubious turnaround on Susan's street cred. Gary is assuring Roberta is not the type and has no connections to Atlantic City. Susan thinks she's paired with Will Patton. I think who she is describing is a lot of word just so we can have Madonna hit the dance floor with her hit song for the movie. Get in, get in, get in, get in, get in, get in, get into the groove, get in to the groove, get in. I can picture a pyramid jacket. Gary dances with Madonna, and Susan gets a POV until she says, "If you want to find your wife, let's go to your place." Roberta leaves the Magic Club alone with just her bag and a dove cage. Will Patton, of course, sees her and follows her. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being creeper, he is 11. He rushes after her too. She runs into a security office where a man named Enrique only speaks Spanish at first. She pleads, "A man is following me. Can you look for him?" Enrique looks her up and down and goes to look for the man following her. She stays seated. A variety show is wrapping up before a commercial comes on. And it's a commercial for Gary's Oasis in Espanol, where your fantasies come true.
Fantasies can come true.
Donde tus fantasías se hacen realidad. Tears in her eyes, she runs out of the building. She runs all the way down a broken alley. She is still dressed as a fluffy magician's dove assistant, and although silly and frumpy, it adds to her cinematically because she is kind of flowing down the alley as this off-color or pink ruffled dress, holding her items, running in heels, screams, "Taxi! Taxi! Taxi!" Onto a quiet and dark alleyway, just like a spider in a crevice, Will Patton grabs her into the darkness, an abandoned lot. "Avoid the fate of your beloved boyfriend." Will Patton has lines written for Candyman. A gun to her head, she's shouting, "I have money in the bag." "Yeah, you missed the breakfast that wasn't." "Oh, no, that's right, you were there." He is wanting her earrings. 1 hour and 7 minutes into the movie. Sirens are heard. Red lights are seen. Roberta takes 2 steps away from the psycho and passes out. Her birdcage falls and her bag is taken. Will Patton is almost too fast. He runs off screen and the camera holds on a wall of bricks because the actor zoomed away.
Good. Poor Roberta.
Policia arrive and are not playing around. Was that your pimp? Play it that way then. Let's go, sweetheart. What's your name? She remembers just before getting into the patrol car. Roberta! That's a name. This tone is not playing around anymore. The art design is not fun or revolutionary. This staircase of gloom reminds me of another striking thriller downplayed, Requiem for a Dream. Roberta is manhandled by police into the back seat. I'm not who you think I am. The gloom is a mustard yellow smog. The back seat already has a passenger. Someone else being tossed around the streets on a night like this, most likely out on this or any other night. Roberta and her doves join the squad car. Gary Glass has Susan in the bedroom. Susan squirts some of Roberta's perfume and bounces her Madonna tush on the mattress. The room is mostly mauve or pink, salmon-colored, dabbled wallpaper with flamingo 80s print, with brass frame is seen over the bed. This decor is just about as bad as Magic Club. It's Pepto Pink, and this is much easier on my Videodrome belly, lol. Susan pulls panties from a nightstand along with several self-help books. Of course, Dr. Ruth's Guide to Good Sex. Gare is playing bashful. They are all Roberta's. Susan says, nice wallpaper. Susanna starts trying on items in Roberta's closet. She walks out with a black sequin jacket, saying, she owes me a coat. She is checking out the place, killing time. And for some reason, some of her lines are like filling out Tiger Teen Beat magazine. Her weight, she goes to sit down in a brown shiny new hot tub, bathtub, and Glass gives her the sales pitch. He is not turning into a villain. He seems to this point a disappointment of a friend and husband, but he seems caring and oblivious, self-centered but not villainous. Susan asks if he has any pot. She looks incredibly flirtatious, curling up in this hot tub bathtub. Gare doesn't have any at the moment. Susan pulls a joint from her boot. Roberta is turned sideways, getting her mug shot. She's still got the olive green jacket, priceless at this point. Her makeup is smeared, her mascara is running, tears in her eyes as well as fear, and one shoulder is bare. It's a painted scene of madness. In disregard for the facts, the answer to 99 out of 100 sitcom questions is communication. No one is minding Roberta's mental well-being, or Susan's for that matter. The stigma of sex work is strong here, and around every New York corner, Roberta is being judged. And this movie, as well as its creator, stands for a strong message of humanity in the sex work subculture industry. Roberta gets her phone call to her husband's she feels needs to explain to the seated patrol guard. The phone rings, where Susan and Gare are movie high, movie stoned. It's almost like Madonna is too big a star to act stoned and blow her newly born brand. So Gary is doing the laughing and rambling. He's stoned in his own house, while his wife is confused and locked in jail, making a pass for her only phone call. Susan thankfully picks up while Gare is in his own world next to her. She answers Glass House, and Gary is heard saying, "Spa King!" and laughing. Roberta hangs up. She calls Jim? Crystal? A guard fumbles through, opening the series of jail doors and announces, "All right, you in the pink tutu." Roberta, forever charming, "It was nice to have met you," silences, leads to Leslie dragging Gary Glass into the jailway. "You haven't seen her and you're already yelling." And similar to her fabulous role in Uncle Buck, she is sort of electroshocking our story into progressing forward. And her character is drawn as one from many TV sitcoms. LaurieMetcalf shreds better than most in her Hollywood ski slopes. She's in her own lane. She's wearing a violet magenta striped scarf and safari colored clothing, matching Gary Glass. Their family, Another TV sitcom co-character, Sandra Bernhard, was a recent Letterman Search and Watch from myself. Gary says, I am simply wondering aloud. Leslie, just hear her side before you do anything stupid. Sergeant Taskell is the officer helping them at a desk. Actor Victor Argo, he is a terrible store owner and taxi driver. He beats a dead man. Also, After Hours, Mean Streets, True Romance, recent episode Ghost Dog, Real Deal, Pickup Artist, on and on. I think with some added comedy, he hands over a short stack of papers that include an 8x10 of her wedding photo, just her, like a solo portrait. The mugshot gets a PIP,
Picture in picture.
paper clipping. Ha! Her husband is here, we're dropping the charges. She was released, you just missed her. Gary, well, who paid her bail? In a bookman's tone, her boyfriend, pimp, who knows, LOL. Susan goes for a joint in her boot while chilling in Gary's fancy brown bathtub, and then Gary takes Leslie to bail Roberta out. He does not bring Susan. Roberta has already been bailed out by Dez. Up the stairwell at Dez's, he's back on his reputation gripe track. You are living up to your reputation. This is your last favor. Roberta is on a self-explanation track, and as they make it to his place, she is explaining. She is wanting to explain. As I was once told by an international intern, don't ask if you can ask a question. To me, just go ahead and ask your question. Just go ahead. Roberta and other characters of miscommunications from the late 80s and 90s VHS era family-friendly films. Just explain already. Getting pretty complicated. She's perfect. I'm single. Dez. Shh. Stay right there. Ugh. So I guess Dez had left to bail out Roberta, and while out, someone crept into his place and unexpectedly ruined his workspace of film reels, 35mm movies of all sorts, out and in their canisters. In one corner of this massive space, this space is reminding me of Ethan Hawke's massive NYC studio and Great Expectations, but someone did bust in and mess up this workspace of interesting film he was working on, right? It's all valuable. Dez has had this big painted billboard-sized movie poster, perhaps, of Bruce Lee, Forgive Me, or a martial arts film. It acts as a sturdy wall paneling or door, and we get a good look at the painting from different angles, and right now, we are getting a clear shot to the unique craft of such an item. Musculature is nicely painted and well tensed. Dez, Victoria couldn't have done. Roberta. Maybe it was the guy who grabbed me last night. Dez and others don't know this, and many other things have happened to Susan and Roberta. And Roberta continues. Complicated. This psycho is following her, and he thinks she is sus, who she is not. And he thinks she's staying here at Dez's. Dez gets thrown out on his ass on the sidewalk. Then I have to pay $200 bail. First off, that was 2 days ago during breakfast. If hipsters like us haven't been kicked out of a city brunch at a dive bar diner surrounded by dive bar junkies, then you haven't lived, Dez. Get it together, man. You are in your very own Cassavetes heater, or one better. Elaine May has you running around in a comedy teeter-totter with not only the 80s Mona Lisa of pop, Madonna, and you are constantly toe-to-toe bailing out your buddy's curly-topped on-again, off-again girlfriend, who is not Madonna, but is Rosanna Arquette from After Hours, who is not your buddy's girlfriend and really is not single. So I guess you have a point. However, you may have the wrong point, Dez, because she's still very exciting, and Victoria didn't seem to like your kind of pace. The point is, help her out. She had $100 at one point, and ideally she's going to come out of her Goldie Hawn overboard slumber, and she may have more than 2004 to give back to you, Dez. I don't know. I'm not mad at Dez. I just wanted to straighten a few things out. This movie came out after Just the Way You Are and before After Hours. Who's That Girl? Overboard, Troop Beverly Hills, Francis Ha, Uncle Buck, and Broad City. Now Dez comes back and the whole place is torn apart. Why, I don't know. I really don't need this shit. Susan? He hasn't listened. Roberta says she's leaving, and she recounts that she was attacked last night and she's packing all she can grab into her drum case. She's sorry for the mess again. Another sorry from Roberta. She says she will send a check. Myself and Des both check that that's another check. Des recovers. He's young. He's out of his mind in the city. Roberta's out of her mind in the city. Susan is out. Roberta trips to the floor. Susan's drum case pops open, spilling Susan's belongings on the floor too. The birdcage has 2 rolls of paper, and Des is down on the floor with her, consoling her, because he knows he's mistaken in his frustration and anger. Roberta is bawling and crying through her teeth. She says, "Sorry, I'm dead." Des goes in for a kiss. I'm Des. She's Roberta. Where's Susan? Where's Larry? Where's Leslie? Where's Gary? Where's Jim? What happened to Crystal? Did she find work? Susan is swimming in her undies in Gary's pool. 2 stills are coming from this movie that are priceless and such funny gems. The first is that I think they wanted a Phoebe Cates in Fast Times moment, because Susan is coming out of the pool in a bra top and men's boxers. Old style boxers, not contemporary trunk shape. She climbs the ladder out and is cute as fuck, hopping onto her sun chair where she has tapes, a small bar, some sunglasses, and cheesy puffs. She takes a bite and lounges. This is the number 1 or 2 pop singer in the world at this time, and again, I highlight this in the beginning of this stage of her career. Christina Aguilera has released Genie from Her Bottle and is comparably on her way to superstardom. Lady Gaga, Britney, Foxy Brown, Doja Cat all come after this appearance. And she's lounging. Maybe not her most flattering. I find her super attractive. I am biased, but she is casual in this movie, especially in comparison to the follow-up, Who's That Girl? Commercials blast off in front of her.
Richard Nolan and Bruce Meeker, you may recall, were released pending appeal of their 1982 conviction for smuggling. Nolan and Meeker are the prime suspects in the disappearance last week of the Nefertiti earrings from the Cairo collection currently on display here in New York.
Nefertiti? Oh, shit. It's not that uncommon. I was reading an article last week about a woman who would turn tricks in the city from 9 until noon, then shop all afternoon before going home. She did it for years before her husband found out about it.
The second still image that is a chuckle, Richard Nolan and Bruce Meeker. A newscaster fills us in on the earring mystery scenario. 1982 conviction for smuggling. Nolan and Meeker are prime suspects in the disappearance of the Nefertiti earrings from Cairo collection, currently on display here in New York. Susan's sitting up in her sun chair. Nefertiti! No shit!
Isn't there also an Egyptian or Nefertiti vibe in the first Mannequin movie?
Leslie and Gary are in the car riding back. Leslie is again mentioning something from daytime TV or sensational news programs. Turn tricks in the city, 9 until noon. Then shop all afternoon before going home. She did it for years before her husband found out about it. Gary rebuttals with, Roberta can't be a sex worker. She doesn't like sex that much. It's impossible. Leslie has this bright scarf wrapped only around her ears over her head while wearing sunglasses. Talking towards Gary, it's hard not to laugh at her attitude, energy, and delivery. It's super direct and specifically on point. LaurieMetcalf. She continues with paranoia about Roberta being a lesbian and that Gary didn't know she was a sex worker. This added tag is not funny and is a terrible assumption or judgment. Gary sees that Susan was set up at the pool. Don't get the wrong idea, she was helping me find Roberta, Susan. Yes, I am now realizing he could have stayed together to find Roberta at the jail. Why did Susan stay behind? Susan is smoking on Gary's bed. Gary, Leslie, and Susan have a trailer line dispensing cipher. Gun-toting pimp, Susan has a Natasha Lyonne slouch. She's wearing a pigskin tank top. Some say it's a wife worshiper. I don't know. Along with the boxer shorts, she now has white lace stockings and garters. Smoking, reading Roberta's diary. Roberta did eat the birthday cake in the kitchen. And Susan says there are pages and pages of somebody's boring life. 1 hour and 20 minutes. Madonna, is the top of the popcorn box too sexy? Busting out. She just seems mean saying this to camera. And Gary, the husband of the boring-ass journal, magician, Dove's assistant Roberta. Susan reads her entries about Susan's classified ads, Roberta asking questions about Susan's travels, and why the two of them are meeting during these extended periods. It's interesting mirroring of Roberta's diary and Susan Jim's classifieds, Roberta wanting a dashing romantic life like Susan's, and Susan has had to switch into suburban social isolation, safe danger, to get a hold of Roberta's resisting magnet, the mirroring of two magnets as Roberta was thrust into Susan's rockin' romantic dangerousness, a stark contrast of comparisons, like a DNA strand of rebellious rejections. A week ago, could you imagine Roberta being kicked on her ass during brunch? Susan is charging Gary, saying, "You could have mentioned she reads classifieds. We could have settled yesterday." Gary, of course, doesn't know Roberta's interests, and I think Roberta is finding out she may not have known her interests until she hit the city. Susan asks for the car keys. Leslie is surprised she took the car keys. Gary is crushed. Susan says hiya to Leslie on her passing to leave. Gary is upset on the bed. Leslie is reading Roberta's diary, wanting to know if anything is written about her. Susan is bumping the car in front as she parks. She gets out to enter the building. She is wearing one of Gary's dress shirts and boxer shorts, garters, and her tank top. She boldly passes 3 identical strangers. A documentary 2018 I highly recommend. It's interesting, thoughtful, and not just about 3 white guys that are related. There is coverage of mental health processes and the recent past in public health on a larger scale, with a twist. These 3 guys are brothers, subject of the documentary, and during this time, in the 80s, they were trending. Watch the doc, nuff said. These 3 identical twins, so to say, she passes as she enters the building, were sort of a trend, a thing of the time, something to be mentioned, these 3 guys, and you must check out this documentary. Desperately seeking stranger seeking Susan regarding key. Meet Saturday night. Magic Club. Be there. Susan is bright and smiling in this municipal lighting, lol. It's kinda a unique moment to film. The next customer is a guy who looks like a deadbeat future version of Jimmy Kimmel or comedian Dave Attell. His write-up request is read back to us. Single male, 40. Looking for afternoon fling. Roberta is on Dez in his bohemian bed. Postcoital? Did she cheat on Gary? Are they even Steven for Becky? You bet, or no go. Roberta spills the spa, spills the beans, spoils the spa. Both Dez and Roberta are nude. Roberta is chin on Deb's abs. I'm not Susan. I'm a housewife. I live in New Jersey. I've been married for 4 years to Gary, who sells pools, bathtubs. Dez is chuckling. He is still subscribed to the reputation of Susan, rather than Susan, the actual woman. Or what Roberta just said, and was saying, I don't know, 2 hours before, or the night ago. I made a note that Dez as an actor is more keen than this character. Again, these characters are in their 20s, with their lives and decisions, and the actors are more 30s than 20s, and Des met Roberta under circumstances requiring him to care about a pretty stranger, along with us, the audience, and he had a genuine connection with her, as a person, and more so, as an adult. And this hanging on to the reputation when Des has been along with her, on her adventures, getting her into trouble, but he has seen how she's tripped up randomly and she's told him she's been in a dangerous scenario. He can get out of her way, help, support, or listen and believe. Pants down with her? How has he not listened to what she's been talking about? She told him who
and why his film reels were ruined.
She's topless, explaining that mix-up attack is a part of her being mistaken for Dez's friend. Oh yeah, Des, you witnessed her get bonked on the head. I'm getting too serious because what's next with 20-somethings? I never know what you'll say next. Come here. Kiss. The door rattles. Des knocks out. It's Jim. Jim wakes with Des handing him ice. Someone is following Susan. I thought it was you. Jim simply asks, who is following her? Des stupidly replies, she's tough to get a straight answer. And Des walks himself into explaining that Susan is the type to settle down. She's too wild, and that's what he likes about her. I'm not going to bullshit you, Jim. Jim is like, have you been spending more time with her? When did you begin to get to know Susan? She plays with people, Des. Don't believe whatever she said to you. Damn, these lines are awful, guys. This scene is ahead of its time. Don't devalue the mind and words of women. And Des clears his throat and delivers his next lines. I don't think she's playing with me, Jim. All right, Jim. Why don't we just ask her? Susan. Jim, surprised, is shouting. Susan, you mean she's here? I'm laughing. Sure, Jims. She's the futon you're laying on. Des, figure it out. Susan has said she is not Susan. She is a housewife. ... Susan, come out here. ... First, I would love for Roberta to just not come out. And I don't know, be real in the kitchen with a cup of hot coffee, like, let's talk it out. 2, I want it to be Mrs. Doubtfire, played by AidenQuin. 3, more than likely, Roberta has just left, and like Alice, Florence Pugh in Don't Worry Darling, is Indiana Jonesing her way back to correcting her own path. Roberta chooses to leave, leaving the guys looking and a teapot whistling. Roberta is on a park bench. She reads the newest personal ad directed towards her from Susan. Jim is back at Dez's place and throws him the paper. We go to the Magic Club, which is giving us transitional drum roll. A John Gabris-looking guy with a curly faux hawk mullet while smoking is at the door. Susan is bringing Gary and Leslie is bringing Larry, Dr. StevenWright. Trust me, you're in for a real surprise. Your little surprises are beginning to make me nervous. Larry, well, I guess we're not going to see Tony Bennett in this place. Leslie, I'd settle for a police escort. Oh yeah, Leslie, who seemed like Roberta's BFF at the salon at the beginning of the movie. How could you let her wear Roberta's jacket? Drinks come to the table tonight. The tables are glowing and the place seems bubbly with electricity. Triple Tequila Sunrise is Susan's. Ginger Ale Gary's. Rum and Tab is Leslie's. Des and Jim are there to see who the stranger is. Gary is clueless. Everyone is clueless. Larry thinks Susan is gorgeous, I guess. Leslie says, beauty fades. Susan walks behind Jim at the bar. This is sad. That's like one ingredient for breakup. Jim sees her talking to the cigarette gal. Des does not recognize her and says, that's not my Susan. Jim says, well, that's my Susan, which is kind of cute. Jim starts shuffling out. Des is confused about the girl at Battery Park from an hour ago in the movie. Maybe he does whippets. AidenQuin is giving the character this level of reaction time spirit. Jim surprises Susan in the ladies' room. She is flirtatiously excited to see him and looks great in an aging bar bathroom. They go somewhere more private. Gary, back at the table, asks, I wonder what happened to Susan. Is he a 20-year-old also? The table. Looks like you lost your girlfriend. Larry, I'm married. Come on. Leslie. Oh, please. Des asks the bartender for the check. John Turturro is on stage as the host Ray, and I knew that. I think I had been calling him Ian. I believe Ian, magician Ian. And he calls Roberta his assistant Davina, the queen of the night. Ray falls off the stage behind the band. And as we watch her fumble through improvising her wardrobe, still going after this job. The role for tonight, my God, what fantastic choices, Roberta. Behind her is a bird costume or bird head prop. That is eye-catching and looks interesting. Shout out to Wonder Woman cutout movable posable decoration in the mirror in the back of the dressing room. I'm going to call it because I'm feeling the chaos of all these characters colliding. I think we're at our sidewalks ending. Sidewalks ending. Roberta is on stage, helping Ian with his tricks, and the table of Gary, as well as Des, are all slow to see that it's Susan? Roberta? Gary stands immediately, and we don't notice that Will Patton, aka Wayne Nolan, is sitting behind Gary. I think even this role, Roberta as magician's assistant, is taken as sex work. Defiantly, judgment is wafting from Gary's table. Roberta continues the tricks and she gets into a box. As the cigarette girl passes Gary's table, cigar, cigarettes, tofuti, LOL, I'm rolling in my seats. Roberta is in the box. She seems happy and the audience is clapping and enjoying her scream like she's actually in peril. She smiles as she sees her audience and Wayne Nolan and screams again, "That's the guy! Hey, follow him! That's the guy!" This is all happening within an instant. Wayne had popped up from his seat, popping Gary's backwards and running towards Roberta in the box. He grabs her wig and runs off stage towards another door. Roberta's still screaming, the curtain falls, and the band fumbles to play out. Gary gets on his feet and runs into the curtain. Des runs under the curtain. Gary follows. The trio is over-talking, and Roberta screams to get their attention. As she introduces Des to her husband Gary, the lighting and haircut and shaping over her in the scene, she looks similar to actresses Vanessa Kirby. Des reacts, needing his alone time. Gary embraces Roberta, saying the nightmare is over. I will believe it when we are out of this red hell of a dive club. Wayne Nolan was not tracked down and caught or accosted or abducted. Where is Jim or Des to kick the shit out of this guy? No one in the NYC crowd noticed this guy from Channel 1 headline coverage? He has resurfaced in the theater. Jim is pants down with Susan on a pinball machine. Wayne slurms his way up to Susan's head with a little gun, and Jim does nothing. The scene looks as if it's the rehearsal. Everyone is super quiet, and Wayne Nolan steals Susan away. Jim is left pants down. Roberta is walking away with Gary, following. At one point, Gary is asking what she's doing here with Des, and Roberta asks the same question of Gary, which is misplaced, because Gary adds, "Never mind that," as if he's concealing that he's here romantically with Susan. And of course, he's here going down the scavenger hunt for Roberta. She's in, I don't know, a storage room or hallway with knocked out windows, and the glass is lit with slime green, so it's got a great fun look. It's also tasteful enough that it could be fantastic for sci-fi, comic superhero, or like TMNT. But Roberta is explaining her interest in personal ads, and Wayne has Susan against an indention in the wall. The John Gabris looking guy from the front entrance of the club is with two other dudes, running around, I guess, looking for Wayne. Gary is in the dressing room, and again the scenario of Roberta being a sex worker is steamrolled over. At one point, she agrees with it, saying it was a mistake. But I know the script has just gotten away from us. But Roberta asks the real question. Why, Gary? Why do you want Roberta to come back home? Gary continues a sitcom series of statements that have lost charm and are not funny. Don't get excited. We can get you help. Are you on drugs now or something? Roberta asks Gary to look at her. I'm looking at you. And you look ridiculous. I mean, look at me, Gary. Look at me. Girl. You're just tired.
I'm Just.
I'm not going home with you, Gary. All right, Gary. I'm your acting trainer, marriage counselor.
Just.
What are you going to say to her not coming home with you? Fine, that's fine. I'm going to go outside and wait 5 minutes. And if you're not there, I'm going to leave without you.
Okay, as your acting trainer, marriage counselor, I have to quit. I want to work with her instead. All right, Roberta, what do we want to say after being given an ultimatum from your spouse and refusal to comprehend his partner's repeated explanation?
Roberta. Goodbye, Gary.
Good one!
She looks happy. Susan is being taken up on a roof or up from underground to the street level. Hard to tell, but she takes a ladder, and I didn't realize this movie gets saturated. It's again super green on these streets. And super awkward. Susan is not screaming in these scenes, probably because she has 7 years of around-the-world touring coming. So, no, I'm not screaming, Seidelman. Jim. Susan, what's going on? Susan makes her way to a row of windows that leads into the dressing room with Roberta sitting thinking alone. Susan is inside the window, mouthing the words, "Help me." So maybe laryngitis on these shooting days. I mean, even AidenQuin is just a continuing force, not really any dramatic energy. I wouldn't want to be in these real-life circumstances either. Don't push me. Roberta cracks a liquor bottle over Wayne's head. Good going, stranger. Susan. Jim is way late. The women just laugh. An old sci-fi movie plays. It's the movie Des is projecting, rolling. Up the stairs and into the booth walks Roberta, wearing an empty green blazer as a jacket. Des is watching the movie. When he says hi, he adds, "So I guess you're not Susan, LOL. No, this is not your friend Jim's girlfriend Susan. Everyone else knows this already by now, Des." He asks her what her name is, which is wild. I did notice she wasn't mentioning her name. I wasn't sure if I missed it as a mumble or it would be brought up. I cannot believe not straightening these things out in real life. It makes for a Hollywood tangle and meet cute for sure. Roberta. And they kiss. Which ruins the film, it burns out, and Jim and Susan share popcorn from cones, while Madonna's song, "Into the Groove, into the groove, into the groove, into the groove." Dance, dance, dance for inspiration, 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 inspiration. Roberta and Susan return the earrings, are cheered at a public service. End of movie. The movie ends, and it is a little bit abrupt. There are some loose ends like I'm bringing up, but not too many for the seriousness of the movie, although grimy and kind of realistic for the way it's shot and the sort of hipster indie purposes of the entirety of the movie. We get a good showing of all these characters, motives, and all these chaotic climaxes, but at the end, it does sort of just shut the booth window and we're out of there. But it's okay. It's sort of a rock and roll fable, pretty well made, but I think there were interesting points. I think that we have missed an opportunity for Susan and Roberta to be in Atlantic City. For being such a big chunk of the story, we don't see Atlantic City. But Madonna is becoming massive, so that would limit, and I think there is no reason in the story. The two girls hardly run around NYC. I think I would like to see them paired up, maybe somehow in the middle of all this stuff, and maybe just at the end. They just get like sort of cheered by the city in a small ceremony, but it would have been fun to just maybe see them dance it out or something in that club or somewhere else. Maybe even just having the four of these people or whatever. I don't know. LaurieMetcalf's career works. I'm getting this from my letterbox tabs. Along with the notable lead actor when possible. I'll leave you with LaurieMetcalf's list of works. Her first major film role with this one, Desperately Seeking Susan, 1985. Making Mr. Right, 87. Candy Mountain, 87. Miles from Home, 88. Richard Gere. The Appointments of Dennis Jennings, 1988, with StevenWright. She's on one major TV show, from 88 to 97, and around 2018 continues with a reboot. Uncle Buck, 1989, John Candy, and she's continuing with a character very similar to Leslie, and we love it. Internal Affairs, 1990, Richard Gere, Mike Figgis. Pacific Heights, 90, Michael Keaton, Melanie Griffith, Tippi Hedren. JFK, 91, A Dangerous Woman, 93, Deborah Winger, Barbara Hershey. Leaving Las Vegas, 95, Nick Cage, Elizabeth Shue, Mike Figgis. Toy Story, 95, Voice of Andy's Mom. Dear God, 96, Greg Kinnear. U-Turn, 97, Scream 2, 97, Bulworth, 98, Runaway Bride, 99, Toy Story 2, 99, Treasure Planet, 2002, Fun with Dick and Jane, 2005, Jim Carrey. Meet the Robinsons, 07, Georgia Rule, 07, Toy Story 3, 2010, Lady Bird, 2017, Toy Story 4, 2019. LaurieMetcalf, Please Be Kind. Please rewind. I gotcha.
I don't need this kind of aggravations. I work for a living. Movies, where everyone goes.
Movie club. The movie club. Movie club. Podcast. Tonight's episode.